It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So glad to be with you guys this morning. Gosh, I got a lot to talk to you about. It's just one of those weeks where I'm fired up, man. It's been an awesome week for real estate. A lot of really good news out there. The market is it's just hot. I mean, there's just no other way of putting it. It's a hot market. And so, here's what I want to talk about over the next hour. I want you guys to understand really what's going to happen if you put your house on the market. Let's first start with the thought process. You know, if you're thinking about selling, what are some of the things that you should be considering right now? Do you have to move? Do you just want to move? Is now the right time? Should I wait? How do I know if now's the right time? Maybe you need to do some work to your property. We're going to talk about renovating your property to sell and how I can help with that. We're going to talk about some properties that you might have that you want to sell. You just don't really know what to do with the money after you sell it. You know, if these are rental properties, investment properties for you, how do you analyze and interpret that? If you're a buyer, first and foremost, how do you even find the properties right now? We literally have the lowest number of homes available for sale right now than we have had since, we're even below 2004 levels right now. So really over the past, we haven't had inventory this low in at least 16 years, probably longer than that. And y'all know that in May, we put more homes under contract in that month than we ever have in the history of the Charleston real estate market. So the market's good. Market's hot. People have a lot of questions about it, and I want to try to answer as many of those as possible over the course of the next hour here. 8 years I've been on this program, giving you my expert opinion and news and reviews on the real estate market and about the process. You know, it's the goal of this show is to just help you better understand if you're going to buy, if you're going to sell, if you're going to invest in real estate. What do you need to know? What's happening in the market right now? How can you use that information to your advantage to be successful in real estate? Now, if you guys want to reach out to me privately, of course, we have a real estate company. We've sold over 1,100 homes here in Charleston, and I moonlight as a DJ on the weekends, but would love to help you with your real estate needs, buying, selling, investing, just answering some questions, offering advice. That's what we're here for. But if you'd like to talk with me about helping you with your real estate needs, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009, or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Learn more about myself and my team. Search the MLS. Find out how much your home is worth. Listen to, hundreds and hundreds of shows that we've recorded here in WTMA. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff. Just search for the Brian Beatty team, and you'll find us. So let's start first. Let's just kind of do what we kind of always do, and let's just talk about the market for a little bit here. The big news this week, which has really been the big news kind of for years and years and years, is that inventory continues to go down. It's incredible to me when I open up the MLS to see the number of homes available for sale under 4,000. I remember not too long ago, it was 6,500, it was 8,000, it was 10,000, it was 12,000. I mean, we were at a point, 10 years ago, not even, where we had 3 times the number of homes available for sale. And if you've been around in Charleston long enough, or you can just think back that long, you remember driving down streets and just seeing a glut of homes for sale. Not so much anymore. They're really hard to find. And so for all those folks out there that are saying, I do want to move. I've spent enough time in my house over the past few months to realize that this isn't the place for me anymore. We've either outgrown the space or we just don't need this much space. I don't want to do all this maintenance. Thankfully, I've had the time to do it over the past few months. Took care of my garden and the landscaping's looking great, but when life gets back to normal, I don't have time for all this, nor do I want to. And so it's sparking a lot of change in just housing in general, how people are using their homes, what they feel they need. And then we've got some generational changes in housing, as baby boomers get a little older and they want to downsize, as millennials are getting a little older and want to upsize and get out of urban environments, move into suburban environments. There are a lot of changes coming our way, just fundamentally with housing. And new construction just isn't keeping up with all the demand. They're sticking with what's selling. They're not necessarily there to fill huge voids of property that are tough to find. They want to go where the money is, reasonably so. So if you're a seller and you're thinking to yourself, is now the right time to sell my house? Let's just talk through that. And, this is one of those weekends where I don't really have much prepared, quite honestly, because there's so much that I want to talk about that I'm just going to kind of let it rip. But I've had so many conversations like this over the past few weeks that it's just so fresh in my mind with folks that are thinking the same thing that you might be thinking right now, which is, I would like to sell my house. I'm a little trepidatious. I'm not sure if now is the right time. I don't know if I want people walking in and out of my house. I don't know if I'm going to just subject myself to that. Can I get the same amount of money that I can get for it, once the coronavirus is over and done with? When will that be? Who knows? So you start to ask yourself these questions, which just puts you kind of in this phase of potentially selling and buying a home that I call the kind of the aspirational phase, which is, we're thinking about making a move. How nice would it be if we had this instead of this, and we were there instead of here? And you start to just kind of roll through those things in your mind, and you kind of make this mental list of pros and cons about where you are versus where you want to be. And you ultimately realize that, okay, it's kind of inevitable that I'm going to be moving at some point soon. Now, of course, there's a separate faction of people that have to sell their house. Something has changed in their life, and now it is time to move. But there's a big group of people right now that they think they want to move. They're just not entirely sure how to go about the process. So what I've been telling some folks, which frankly has worked and the numbers prove it, is to just remember, hey, buy low, sell high. Sometimes it applies to real estate on a deal-by-deal basis, but you're going to sell high and buy high right now. It just depends on the transition from one location to another. The saving grace for buyers right now is that, you're paying more for the real estate than you did this time last year in most instances, and certainly the years before that. But look at what the interest rate has done. We're in the twos. It's free money, basically. It's unbelievable how inexpensive interest rates are right now. And you get to keep that for 30 years. It's not like that's, something that fluctuates over time like pricing does and inventory does. You get to lock in that price, that payment for 30 years. It's just incredible. If you own property and you intend on owning it without selling it, and you've got an interest rate that's, even, in some instances, half a point above the interest rate right now, you need to look at refinancing. Save yourself some money. It, of course, depends on how long you want to own the property. But let's get back to this train of thought about, what should I be thinking? What process should I be using to determine whether now is the right time to sell my house or not? Well, obviously, as you know, inventory is incredibly low and demand is incredibly high. Even with the lowest number of homes we've had for sale in at least 16 years, probably longer than that, and in May, we put more homes under contract than we ever have in any month in Charleston's history. And with all of these people that are moving to the area, we still just can't find enough inventory to reverse the curve, right? I want you to think about real estate and the swing between a buyer and a seller's market as a pendulum, right? It has been swinging in the direction of the sellers for years and years and years, like at least 7 years, probably 8 years. But at some point in time, when that pendulum gets to the top, it starts to lose momentum. And so part of this is that you just have to ask yourself the question of, is it realistic to think that we're going to be in this same position 6 months from now, 12 months from now? What can change between then and now? And you're going to have to do some thinking, and you're going to have to talk with an agent that can help you speculate in a reasonable way, while understanding, of course, that you are in fact speculating, but you look at the signs, you look at the trends, you look at all the people who are moving to the area, you look at all the reasons why this market is either going to stay where it is or it's going to change depending upon where you are. And you make some decisions, you make some plans. Part of that's going to start with looking at your own neighborhood, your location, your price range. How many other homes are available for sale right now? When we pull comparable properties over the past 6-9 months to price a home, in many instances now, there are hardly any comps to pull. That is creating a challenge for appraisers. Obviously, it's creating a challenge for buyers and sellers and real estate agents as well, because if you don't have enough data to support the price that a buyer is willing to pay, then the appraisal can be jeopardized. And we've unfortunately had some of those issues happen over the past few months where we sold the house for a great price and the buyer's willing to pay it, but the bank can't justify it because the appraiser doesn't have enough consistent data to say that in the past people have been willing to pay the same thing for similar properties. Sometimes we're having those issues. Sometimes the appraisers are saying, you know what, I'm so darn busy. I have so many of these appraisal orders that, here's the contract amount. It seems reasonable. I'm going to make the numbers work and I'm just going to move on. Some of the I know some appraisers listen to this show, and I've said this before. I would love your feedback on that. I would love to hear from your perspective what's happening in your industry. I've got a good idea of it. I have talked to some appraisers, but feel free to call me and either call me out or agree with me. I think, there are going to be differing opinions on that. But, by and large, we're starting to have some appraisal issues because prices are just getting pushed up and up and up. So from a seller's perspective, that's great. You have a ton of equity right now. If you have very little competition, it might be a good time to think about selling the house just because it's an opportunistic time for you to sell. Very low competition. Of course, the challenge with that is how do we then find a home for you that you can move into, that you first and foremost want to move into, but that also is reasonably priced, that you don't have to go and pay an arm and a leg for. And I'll tell you that time after time after time after time after time, we are getting the sellers very close to what they want. In fact, our team is selling homes in an average of 7 days this year. Just 7 days from the time we listen to the time we're under contract. And the majority of them are getting multiple offers. And this is not just, some people say, well, yeah, but that's probably in like the $200,000 price range, right? No. $1 million plus too. Just depends on how you market the property. We're going to talk more about that as this show continues. And continue this discussion right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Remember, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to give me a call. If you want to just chat offline about, your interest in hiring my team, or you just want to chat about the process, the market, and I can fill you in on what's kind of happening here. My number is 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk with me about real estate off of this program, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And, of course, you can check us out on iTunes and Google Play and Spotify, YouTube, Facebook. We're everywhere. So just search for the Brian Beatty team. But I want to continue this discussion about this thought process that you should go through if you're considering selling your house. And this really applies more to people that they want to, but they don't have to. And that's, quite honestly, that's the majority of people that we work with are people that they would like to do it, but nothing is pushing them out the door. This is not a true need. It is a want, maybe with a little urgency attached to it. They don't want this thing to last forever. They want to have this process be reasonable. They want to sell their home for a fair price. They want it to take a reasonable amount of time. They want to work with somebody that cares and is invested in the process to get them the best deal possible. It sounds pretty reasonable, right? So you've got these folks that are considering selling. We'll talk more about how we find the replacement property here in just a second, but I was mentioning that, first thing, let's just look at the market. Let's look at the competition. Let's look at what other things that are similar to yours have sold for. Let's just get a benchmark. What do we think this house is worth? If there's really nothing else on the market like it right now, or if nothing else has really sold like it in the past few months, I do want to explain that can be a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, with a lack of data, you get to ask a little bit more because you are, in effect, setting the market for a house like yours. On the other hand, there's a lack of data to justify it. So it begs the question, if a property doesn't appraise for the contract amount, what happens? Is the deal dead? Not necessarily, no. You can contest the appraisal. You can offer different information. You can challenge the adjustments that the appraiser made. You can look for errors. You can look for omissions. You can have them readjust their appraisal amount after that occurs. And if you really feel like the appraiser dropped the ball, which I have had happen recently, and gave that appraiser an earful because, frankly, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this, it was the worst appraisal I've ever seen. It was pure. It was so negligent. I mean, it was just bad. It was bad, and it hurt my clients because it was an FHA deal. The appraiser excluded comps that were relevant. The comparables that he did include, he made adjustments that made no sense. They were not consistent. I don't understand what in the world happened, if I'm being completely honest. But after I presented a laundry list of information that he could have added or included and some deficiencies that he missed or made mistakes on, in my opinion, which, hey, I'm not an appraiser. I get that. But I know a thing or two about a thing or two. And I know that if there's something more comparable that you didn't include versus that home that was 20 miles away, that doesn't really make sense for you to include in that appraisal report. Don't you think you should put that in versus, you don't see what I'm getting at here? Well, because that appraisal could not be considered invalid for the next 6 months, if anybody else wants to get an FHA loan, that is the appraised value for that house. We're stuck with that crappy appraisal. And, those are sometimes the things that we have to deal with as agents that just, they're outside of our control, and we try to do as best we can. But that's just the reality of the market. Now, those are very rare instances. We've had more success with challenging appraisals and actually getting the appraisals increased after we, because we want to be easy to work with, and we want to, we are the type of agent that when people have issues, we work together, we problem solve. That's what great agents do. They figure out a way to make it happen. And so, just because the property doesn't appraise for the contract amount doesn't mean the deal is dead. We're going to do everything we can to raise that appraisal amount, but we can also just get the buyer agree to pay the contract amount or very close to it and just bridge the gap between the appraisal amount and the contract in the form of cash. And there are plenty of buyers that are willing and have been willing to do it. So the reason I say that is sellers have this unique opportunity right now to really sell their home for an incredible price and get a buyer to agree that that property is worth more than what has recently sold for, and they're still willing to move forward. The other hand, of course, is once we get that great contract and it seems as though this deal is going to close, where do we go? How do we find those replacement properties? So again, we'll get to that in just a second. I just want to remind you that we're going there. But once you've determined, okay, this is what I think I can sell it for, this is how much time I think it's going to take to sell it, here's what we need to do to the property if we want to achieve that price and that amount of time. And we're going to talk in this next segment about renovating to sell. I'm going to dedicate an entire 10 or so minutes to that because we've got a really cool program that can help you guys renovate your own home. Stop selling them to all these investors for 30+% off. I can show you how to renovate your property, and I can arrange financing so that you don't have to pay out of pocket for all that stuff. You could renovate your own home and sell it for profit. Pretty cool, huh? So after you've determined that, hey, it seems like now is the right time, we've analyzed the market, it seems like there's a good opportunity here, then you need to interview some agents. And I've done plenty of shows on this program about interviewing agents, but I do want to say, and I'm okay with this happening because I think it's the right thing to do. You need to interview at least 2, preferably 3 real estate agents. You just need to be careful about what you say during these interviews, because what you say can and will be held against you in the form of the agent telling you what you want to hear just so they can get a signed listing agreement. It is a problem unlike anything I have seen in this industry right now, but it makes sense. Think about it. There are the number of homes available for sale is the lowest it's been in the vast majority of real estate agents' careers. And probably over 99% of the agents that are in this market, they haven't been around for that long. So this is a new uncharted territory for them. So what are one of the ways that they can ensure that they have things to sell? Because in case you didn't know this, real estate agents' businesses, by and large, are built off of their listing inventory. That's what they have to sell. If you're selling cars and you ain't got no cars in the lot, you're out of business. So what do? They're telling a lot of sellers what they want to hear just so those sellers will hire them. And then from there, it is this big uphill battle. It's the agent constantly hammering you to try and reduce the price, to change something, to make repairs, to put in the hardwoods instead of keeping the carpet the same. Just all these things that should have been identified and handled beforehand, and the price set reasonably beforehand. It's all an afterthought, but they're not going to push too hard, because if they push too hard, they might think, well, they're never going to go for this. They're not going to reduce their price $25,000 or whatever the number is. So they just, they kind of just don't have the conversation. They don't want to lose the listing. They don't want to lose the ability to market that property, because from their perspective, hey, if it sells, awesome. Icing on the cake. But if it doesn't, well then, hey, at least I got something that I can market. At least I can show other people that I'm active in the neighborhood. At least people are calling the sign, inquiring on Zillow. At least I've got an opportunity to earn more business and replace what I've got with another contract. I know that that's sad, and there are going to be some, I always kind of think about the agents that are listening to this program, because some of them are just like, ugh, he talks so negatively about agents. And there are other agents that are like, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The industry is just, there's so many agents in here that just don't know what they're doing. That for the ones that have been around, that are respected, that do a good job, even if they're new. I don't mind that agents are new. I'm not saying that new agents are bad. Far from it. I have plenty of agents that are new to the game on my team that are fantastic, that our clients love. But it's the lack of information. It's the inability to service somebody properly that just kind of irks me. And one of the ways that I see that is just in the contracts that I get on some of these listings we have. I mean, it looks like, and in fact, in many instances, it is the first contract that they've ever written. And it shows, because there are so many holes in the contract. There are so many things that are just incorrect that, if I signed it, then my client would be in serious jeopardy of not being able to close on the sale, or not being able to hold that buyer liable if they default on the contract. And it's because these agents write in all this ambiguous language or forget to check boxes. They just don't fill it out properly. And in theory, it can harm either party to the contract. I mean, one of our core functions as realtors is to protect the public's best interests. And so, getting back to this train of thought of, if you're going to sell your house, you need to interview agents. My suggestion is, don't tell the individual agents what you've told the individual agents. One of their favorite questions is going to be, what did agent number one tell you to list your house for? And a lot of people should be smart enough to realize this, but that is a baiting question. All they're doing is looking for you to say a number so they can say, oh, well, I would absolutely list it for more than that. So whenever they give you information like that, just, Ask them to justify it. See if it's justified. See if that's even part of their process. How do they come up with that number? Don't be afraid to ask some tough questions of these agents, because if you don't, and you just go off of their word, you might find yourself in trouble. You might find yourself in a relationship with an agent that you are going to fairly quickly want to get out of. So just do your due diligence in your conversation with these agents. And I'm not trying to paint agents as being these sly, cunning creatures that are going to do everything they can to just, pull one over on you. There are some that will. Don't get me wrong, and I won't back off on that. Most agents intend to do the right thing, but they also want to feed their families. And in environments like this, unfortunately, some of those bad habits and those bad practices come to light. So I'm saying that so that you can be aware of it. So there's a part of this process that I want to cover next. I'm going to take a quick break, but I want to talk about renovating your house to sell. Rather than just selling to an investor, letting them make all the profit, what if you could do it yourself? So when we come back, we're going to talk more about that right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Now, if you want to reach out to me and talk more about working with me to help you buy, sell, or invest in real estate, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 1250 WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take a little bit of time and just say thank you to those of you that listen to this program and rely on the information within it. It really does mean a lot to me and, of course, to our real estate team. We love helping people buy, sell, and invest in real estate. And I feel like I'm a little jacked up this morning. But you know what? The market's good, and we're excited, to be excited. Nobody really likes being cooped up at home and feeling like they have their hands tied behind their back. So it's just been good to be busy and to have people that are asking questions, that are expressing curiosity about the market, and that when they move forward are just finding such success. I mean, that's what we live off of. That's what we're here for. And so if that's something we can help you with, feel free to give me a call. Even if it's just to start the conversation, you're thinking about one day doing this, I'll tell you that is a good thing. It's a good thing to take your time with this process. You don't always have to rush everything in life. You don't always have to have instant gratification in everything in life. Taking your time with your real estate transaction is a good thing. It helps you save money. So if that's something I can do for you, 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009. That's my cell. You can call or text that. Or visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So, we've had a lot of conversations, and we've been through this many, 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 many times. Not just over the past year, but in the course of my 15-year career as selling real estate. In fact, we've done over 100 flips, been involved in over 100 flips. And when we walk through a house with somebody, we're almost always faced with the question of, what should I do to my house to prepare it for sale? Should I replace the flooring? Should I paint? Should I put in the granite countertops? Aren't all these things personal choices? Don't buyers just want the money to be able to do it themselves? Should I be making some renovations to the property? Should I spruce it up a little bit? I know that these things in my home might be a little dated. Is that something I should do, or are those things too personal? Am I going to put in granite countertops that, I spend $5,000-$6,000 on that some people are going to like, but then maybe the one buyer that really likes it hates the granite and they don't give us any value for it? These are all great questions. We get them a lot. And so the first thing I'll tell you is that when we walk through a house, let me just tell you this. I have seen, I don't know how many thousands of home inspection reports. I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars we've overseen in renovations and repairs and remodels and all of this fun stuff on my real estate team, but we've got a lot of experience in this area. And so I really appreciate it when people call me before they start writing checks to start fixing things in their house. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Please don't start going and doing a bunch of stuff to your house because you feel like it has to be perfect before the real estate agent comes over. We have relationships in just about every facet of the housing process, from the guy that pours the concrete to the guy that paints the walls and everything in between. Please, please, please rely on our relationships. We know the people to call. We know that they give good customer service. We know their pricing. And, this is not a one-size-fits-all either. You've got some contractors that are more expensive. Why? Because they're worth it. We have some contractors that are less expensive because the work that they do doesn't need to be top-notch. And you guys, I know you understand that, but it's worth mentioning. You get what you pay for. But because we do so much of this business with so many different kinds of people, we know who to call. We know the people that we would not work with again. And we know what things reasonably should cost. When we look at a home inspection report, of course, we're not the contractor, but we're the ones that oversee the contractor. We're the ones that look at the pricing, gather the quotes. You start to see enough of those things and you gain a pretty good appreciation for what things cost, or at least what they should cost. And that allows us to make sure that our clients aren't being taken advantage of when somebody walks through the home and does a home inspection and then says, oh, yeah, well, it needs these things and it's going to cost $15,000. No, it's not. $6,000, maybe. Here are the quotes. We've already been through that. So preparation is key. But what about the people that want to renovate their house and sell it for more money? Is there an opportunity essentially for you to flip your own house? If you were to do the floors and update the bathrooms and update the kitchen, how much more money could you sell it for above what it would cost you to do those things? Is there an opportunity for you to make money by renovating your own house? When we walk through that process with people, we look at something called the ARV, the after renovated value. If we feel as though that's the right thing to do and they have the money to do it, then we can just coach them through the process and, tell them what selections they should be making so that they're staying within budget, so that they're not putting a $50,000 kitchen in a $250,000 house, and just making appropriate choices, because ultimately we're turning this house into a product that we're going to sell. We're going to maximize profit. But what about those folks that would like to do some things to their house, or maybe they know they need some repairs done, but they just don't have the money? Well, usually you just incorporate that into the price of the house. But you're putting the work on the buyer. And that buyer is going to charge you something for that inconvenience, especially now. So we on the Brian Beatty team have figured out a way to walk you through this process of renovating your own house for profit. We'll tell you what we think it's worth after we do all this work, and we can arrange financing for you so that you don't have to write checks for all the things that you do to renovate your house to prepare it to sell. I don't know of anybody else that's doing this, but this is something we've got a lot of experience in. We do it ourselves. We flip property. We have rental property. We help a bunch of other people do the same. So we have the resources, the contacts, and the knowledge to help you do this. If it's something as simple as replacing floors to something as grandiose as putting an addition on the house. So if that's something you want more information on, I encourage you to call me so that we can walk you through what that process looks like and how we've made that really easy for you guys. So feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And you can just click on the Contact Me tab and say, Brian, heard about the ability to renovate a property. Just want more information on that. Happy to talk with you about it. Of course, it's more than likely going to require me to look at the house and look at the things that you want to do to it. But if you want to just have a conversation first, absolutely happy to help. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are going to take advantage of this. So 843-400-8009 or go to listingsincharleston.com. When we come back, we're going to talk about the thing that buyers are challenged with the most. How do I find houses? We've been on Zillow, been on Realtor.com, been on a few other websites. We've even driven around. We just can't find the right property. Just can't seem to find the right deal, that dream house. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Hey, Charleston, welcome back to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. We've been talking really the entirety of this show about selling properties. Let's talk about the other side of it. Let's talk about buying a home. Let's say that you've gone through this process. You've contacted us. We've shown you that, hey, maybe now is the right time to sell your house. If we could get this amount for it, let's go for it. And we do. How do we now find you a suitable replacement property? I think a lot of people aren't going to start the process first and foremost before they have a reasonable expectation of what they're moving into. So where do we start with this? First of all, yes, you can go online and you can search Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com and Redfin and all these different websites. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are more updated than others. Some of them take a little time to populate data. I mean, I'm sure some of you that have used these sites have been through this before. You finally, you get your alert for a new listing, and by the time you call the agent, property's already under contract. Well, it hit the market a day and a half ago. It's just that now it's showing up on the website. Took a little while. But for some of these homes, and like I said earlier, I mean, we're selling homes in an average of a week, literally 7 days. It's incredible on some of these properties. We sold one in a little over a month for full price, over $1 million house that was on the market for over 3 years with 3 other agents. And we didn't do much to change the price. It was marketing and positioning, quite frankly. And so you've got all these people out there that are just snatching up these properties left and right, which also means that you have buyers sitting around just waiting for new property to hit the market. But if the process that you're using to be notified of these new listings is a day, 2 days late, then sometimes you're missing the good ones before you even have a chance. So, obviously the MLS is the center point from which all of these listings are then syndicated to all of these websites. It all starts from the MLS. Once it's in the MLS, then it goes on every single agent's website, every single real estate brokerage's website, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, you name it, that's where it comes from. Mostly. There are, of course, some exceptions, but very few. And so the first thing that I would say is, talk to a real estate agent. Get them at least to set you up with a search on the MLS. That is, I want to say that is like the most diluted and easy thing for a real estate agent to do, but it's also the most common, and it's what they believe their value proposition to be. And I want you to hear me out here for a quick second, because here's what most buyer agents are going to do and say. They're going to talk with you on the phone. It doesn't. Let's say you go to an open house. Let's say that you call them on Zillow. It doesn't matter how you get in front of this agent. They're going to ask you some of the same basic questions. Tell me what you're looking for. Bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, locations, price range, any other features that are important to you. And then once they have that information together, they're going to say, okay, great. So here's what I can do for you. I can create a search for you so that each time a new property hits the market, you receive a notification. And if an existing property reduces their price, you can also get a notification. What do you think about that? Oh, well, that's fantastic. Yeah, let's go for it. Great. Well, I'm going to set you up on that. And then as soon as you see something you like, you just let me know and I'll go and I'll show it to you. Okay, great. Big smile, 2 thumbs up, and they feel like their job is done. Problem is they've put all the responsibility on your shoulders to determine what's a good deal. You're now the one that has to analyze everything and say, oh, well, this seems like something I would like. I guess now I contact the agent so that he can show it to me. Well, yeah, that's exactly what this agent is banking on. What should be happening is, you become very familiar with what a buyer's looking for, what they like, what they don't like. You communicate. You look at properties online. You look at properties in person. Well, as this list continues to filter, and as we really get closer to understanding what your dream home looks like, then as soon as that property hits the market, yeah, you should get that email because it happens instantaneously. But that agent should also be picking up the phone and saying, hey, did you see 123 Main Street? That's one that we need to go and take a look at. Can you take some time, during lunch and go and look at this house with me? And that needs to be understood that we're not doing that to be pushy salespeople. We're doing that because we know, hey, if we don't get there soon, if we're not the early bird to the worm, someone else is going to get that. And you've seen it happen time and time and time again. But even that is fairly, it's not that hard. It's fairly elementary, quite frankly. There's no new spin on that system. That's been happening for years and years and years. So what are some other ways that we can find some of these properties? Well, I will say that the more people a real estate company or team or agent communicates with, so long as they have an effective and efficient way of sorting through all of that data, they should be able to mine their own database and find opportunity for you. Like as an example, when we take a listing, because we have had so many people come to our website through this proactive thing that we've been doing with this company based out of California for about 2 years, that for every listing we take, I can literally go into my system and say, okay, all right, here's the address. Here's the number of bedrooms, bathrooms. I want to know who has been on my website and looked at homes in this price range, in this area, in this square footage range. And it will literally spit out hundreds of buyers with their name, number, email address, and similar listings that they've looked for, which for us becomes a separate targeted list that we'll communicate with because they're full of buyers that might be interested in our listing. Well, same thing applies. The more and more you talk to these people, the more you realize that, well, yeah, but in order for them to buy something, they're going to need to sell a house. Well, what does that house look like? How much is that worth? If we haven't done any of that due diligence, then, we're blind. We just have names and numbers of people that, every other agent is going to call, and they're just going to say, hey, just checking in. Still want to buy a house? Still want to sell your house? Cool. Tell me more about that. Like there's no data, there's no consistency, and there's certainly no purposefulness to being able to sort through that data for the benefit of our clients. So for us, we've got a database of almost 250,000 people. I kid you not, that we can go through so that when somebody says, yeah, I'm thinking about buying a home in this area, in this price range, in this, school district, whatever, we've got a really efficient way of filtering through that. We're not the only ones. I'm not trying to say that, we're sitting on top of the mountain there. But an effective real estate agent, an effective real estate team, group, company should have the ability to do the same thing. And what's really great about you reaching out to an agent before you're ready to write a contract on something is that if you can give us a little more time, we can spend that time looking through our database to find people that have similar time frames. Let's say that you want to buy a home, but you don't want to buy a home for 6 months. Well, I'd rather know now than, when you're ready to buy something 2 months from now, because, hey, now we only got 2 weeks to find a house before we put it under contract and try to close on it. I want to go through my database to say, who are all the people that we've talked to that would consider selling 6 months from now? Why can't we match them up now and just agree on a transaction 6 months from now? We do that successfully about a dozen times a year on my team. It works well. But again, you have to have the ability to do it. So, the trick here is that if you work with an agent that has all of these contacts and an efficient way of sifting through their database to find opportunity for you, that can go a really long way. But you should also, you can be considering things like for sale by owners or people that are on Zillow that have the Make Me Move sticker on there. We can look at people that have rented their home consistently that might consider selling it to you. If you don't have an efficient way of searching for rentals, then that's obviously something a real estate agent can help you with. And then you've got distress sales, which, we don't have enough time for, but my guess is that here over the next few months, certainly within the next 12 months, we're going to have a few more of those come available as these furloughs and layoffs continue, hopefully getting back to normal soon, but that's going to be an opportunity. So if that's something I can help you with, feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Listingsincharleston.com is the website, listingsincharleston.com. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Thanks for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273.